WWE TLC is in the books, and we got our full review and breakdown of the pay-per-view. That episode starts right now. What's up, everybody? Great day on the internet. Good to see you. Matt here from Assemble. Thanks so much for joining us. Today, we are going to go through and give you our full thoughts breakdown of TLC that just finished up yesterday. So guys, first overall impressions and thoughts of the pay-per-view. I thought, considering the TLC is much more of a B-level pay-per-view at this point, it's had some great moments in the past, but I think that it's kind of lost its luster, like a lot of the gimmick pay-per-views where we have Hell in the Cell and Extreme Rules and all of these ones. TLC starts following under that umbrella and that camp. It's not a major four pay-per-view, but it does usually have its high spots. Now, with everything going on with the pandemic and then going into the Thunderdome, it's really hard to get some of these pay-per-views and these matches to actually be pulled off. Overall, in a nutshell, guys, I actually enjoyed TLC. I thought that it was, for as few matches as they had, I thought that it was engaging enough and that it kept my attention throughout the entire evening. And I actually thought that they did a really good job. Everyone kind of busted their butts. They made the most of it. They utilized their time. And what I've really enjoyed as one of the positive things that's come out of being in the pandemic and everything is that the pay-per-views have been really, for the most part, they've been tight. They've been shortened down. And we've been able to enjoy them as just at a quicker pace. And that's what I really liked. For a show like this, I was kind of nervous that we only had about 5 matches that were going to be announced, and that we weren't really going to see anything huge. It was just going to be kind of your run-of-the-mill pay-per-view. Now, there weren't any really big shocking moments that came out of this thing. Other than the ending, and we'll talk about the main event and what I thought was going to be the main event, which was Roman and Kevin Owens, but turns out that we actually ended up getting the Fiend in there. But we'll talk about the outcome of that. But guys, overall, I thought that with all the news that's going on with USA being unhappy, Wrestle Talk came out with recent posts that just talked about how there is, through their sources, that there is news that, USA Network is not very happy with the absolute bottom rating that WWE and Raw are getting specifically over the last couple of months. We've seen record low ratings for Raw. So it was going to be interesting for me to see how this pay-per-view is going to shake up. We're starting to now get into the Royal Rumble. We're going to get into that mode over the next couple of weeks. And it's interesting to see where they're going to go with Raw and any of the future dates coming up. And I think we got a little bit of taste of this because they wanted to have, USA Network has been talking about how they want to be able to have something a little bit edgier. They want more, kind of adult themed content coming out of WWE. Smackdown's ratings have been kind of steady around that 2 million mark, and they really haven't had any issues. Speaking specifically to Raw, they need to up their game. And I think we got a little bit of a taste of that when it came to the main event tonight. So the show kicked off with the WWE Championship match, actually, between Drew McIntyre and AJ Styles. And this TLC match really did deliver. We got both guys crashing all over the place. Drew played up his knee injury that he was sustaining from AJ throughout the entire course of the evening, which I thought was really well done. Having something like that that's targeted, I think it always plays really well into the match because it allows for, them to focus on that. AJ can actually take Drew out by the legs. I think it comes across really well on TV, especially when you're trying to climb the ladder and all of that. It gets one more layer into all of this. I thought that this match, I wasn't going to be disappointed with AJ versus Drew. I thought that they could always put on a really good match. I was curious to see how Drew would do it in more of a hardcore TLC environment. I know that AJ could probably deliver, but man, these guys went at it. They got tons of time to opening up the pay-per-view. I thought that they did extremely well. It came across really well. Drew came out on top by climbing the ladder and retrieving the title. AJ took a massive bump that's all over online, where Drew basically just bench presses him and chucks him out of the ring through a table. And the way AJ landed, it looked really rough. AJ ends up catapulting over the ring in through the table. And I think most of his neck got smashed up during that thing and his upper back, because man, that looked really rough. We also got the Miz and Morrison involved. We got AJ's henchman that was in there. He chucks out the Miz as well. Miz does the full cash in. John Morrison helps out. Miz gets taken out by AJ's bodyguard through a table, which was the most gingerly placement of somebody getting smashed through a table, where the 7'5" guy just basically drops him right out of the ring through the table, taking out the Miz. And like I said, Drew ends up retaining the title through all of this and all the shenanigans, we kind of suspected that we were going to get a Miz cash in or a tease of a cash in. There's reports online that people have been trying, that WWE Creative has been trying to figure out a way to be able to get the Miz to cash in the Money in the Bank. And apparently, a lot of the ideas that were pitched through were absolute crap. No one was happy with it. This was kind of the best solution that they can come up with. I was pretty happy with the way they did this. The whole Money in the Bank situation, though, has been really like just nothing and lackluster. And I think putting it on The Miz would have been a great idea 2 years ago, 3 years ago even, when The Miz was really hot with the Intercontinental Championship. He was that snarky heel. His feuds with Dolph Ziggler were actually really good. The Miz had a lot of momentum then. But since John Morrison came back and they teamed them up, they have been relegated as basically this comedy duo where they have no momentum, no steam, no titles, no nothing. They fought Braun and it's been just shenanigans there. They've lost handicap matches against Drew. Like, they have never been in a position where they were going to come out on top. And because this thing was just kind of like pushed together at the front with, you got a TLC match between AJ and Drew, which is great, but that's also quickly built. Then you slap in The Miz immediately. It all feels very rushed and put together to the point that with Miz cashing in, it was never going to be believable that he would win. And if they did win, if they did put Miz over, it was only going to be for shock value to be able to just pop some ratings for the next day. But I don't think that they want to do that. They really like Drew as champ. Him versus AJ, I want to see it again and do more. But now that the Money in the Bank is done, I feel like because they took it off Otis, they put it on Miz, they did this just kind of whatever cash in that failed. It gets rid of the Money in the Bank. They can kind of reset and restart and look at it to next year when they want to redo this and do something right. It's really too bad that the Money in the Bank with Otis didn't work out. It seemed like an odd pick, but I get it. They want to be able to change things up at the time. We didn't know how long everything was going to last, where they're going to be in the Thunderdome. And I think it became more and more obvious that someone like Otis wasn't going to be able to get over with Money in the Bank because of just that comedic style and having a comedy gimmick with the Money in the Bank. They don't seem to really mesh very well. So anyways, guys, I thought that the Drew AJ TLC match to open off the night, I thought it was really great. If I'm going to rate this thing at all and give it anything out of 10, I'd probably give it about a 7.5 out of 10 to 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I thought that AJ just took a ton of bumps and was flying all over the place for Drew. It made Drew look even stronger. I like that they just didn't let Drew overpower him. He's a huge guy compared to AJ, but it became more believable when you added in all of the extra elements. So good match overall. WWE SmackDown Women's Championship, Sasha Banks versus Carmela. This match, I thought, was really important for Carmela to look really strong in and just not get her clock cleaned by Sasha Banks. Now, there were some really good spots in this where they were fighting outside of the ring. You've got, what is his name? Reginald? That you got Carmela's handler guy there. There was one moment in the match where I think they chucked Carmela out of the ring and Reginald caught her and like barely caught her to like save that whole spot. It was like inches away. And then even Corey Graves making comments on commentary about how close that was too, which I bet he was concerned for Carmela's well-being. This match was good. It was a good pace. Sasha Banks comes out at the end, winning the match, retaining her women's championship by going through a bank statement on Carmela. Carmela taps out via submission. This was good overall. I just wish that they were able to kind of push this thing along in a little bit of a different way. And what I mean is, like, it could have been a no disqualification match, a chairs match, a tables match. They could have done something with the gimmick. It's at the gimmick pay-per-view. But we had a no DQ match with shenanigans and all this stuff on SmackDown between these two in a title match. Then we get another title match at TLC where it's just a straight up one-on-one. Now I think that this feud is over, guys. Like, there's nowhere else to go. And you guys tell me, let me know in the comments below, do you think that they can actually do any more when it comes to Carmela and Sasha Banks? I like that what they're doing with Sasha Banks, they're building it up really strong. I think that this bodes well when they're looking at the Royal Rumble and into Mania, that they can maybe keep her going this strong all the way through and maybe get someone like Bayley to win the Rumble to take her on. But I wish that they kept Carmela strong by getting her to do a DQ win where she does lose, but Sasha retains. I was looking for something like that so that we get kind of a blow-off match. Either make it a main event on Smackdown in a couple of weeks, because you have a lot of time now between now and the Rumble. It would have been good if they actually set this thing up for maybe one more match. And maybe they will, but there's no reason why Carmela now comes back to win this thing. But anyways, I thought the match was good. It was pretty strong. We got both of them. There's a sense of urgency towards the end of the finish too, which I really, really like. Whenever they can do that, it makes me get a little bit more invested, and it suspends your disbelief and your believability with the match too. Sasha goes over, submission. Okay, next up, we've got Hurt Business versus The New Day for the Raw Tag Team Championships. Now, this I thought was really good. This started to make me feel like this was a takeover level tag team match, just by the quickness and the pacing that these guys were going at. You have all these amazing veterans in the ring. Like, I was not going to be worried at all. There's really never a bad New Day match. I thought that them going up against Hurt Business was the opportunity for Hurt Business to finally get elevated a little bit more, do a bit more damage, and sure enough, we got that. Hurt Business goes over, wins the Raw Tag Team titles, but they do it in a way that was pretty interesting. This match was nice and hard-hitting and quick-paced throughout the entire thing. Kofi Kingston was doing some amazing work throughout this entire match. Like, he stole the show for me on this thing. Between these four guys, Kofi was the standout performer for this whole match, in my opinion. Shelton Benjamin was ready to do his finisher. He had everything teed up, ready to go at the very end, and then Cedric gets a blind tag in on Shelton, comes in, lumbar check, and beats the New Day 1-2-3. And they win the Raw Tag titles. Now Hurt Business has all of those titles. We've got the US title on Bob Lashley, and the rest of Hurt Business now has the tag title. So this is looking really good. This is what I wanted in my predictions episode to happen. I said that I wanted to be able to have Hurt Business get all that gold, beef them up a little bit, and now maybe you can look at some scenario where they're going to go after the WWE title, maybe in a few weeks, just to be able to tease that at least. So, but you've got all of Hurt Business running that mid card, which is a really, really good scenario. This was interesting though at the very end, because when Cedric actually won, it threw Shelton off. So they played in there that there's maybe some one-upsmanship, that Cedric was trying to get the spotlight, which does play in a pretty good, because they're all about their brand. They're all about being larger than life with the Hurt Business. So I like that they went down this path. I hope that they don't break them up anytime soon. I think it's great to see that Cedric is actually getting a title. Shelton Benjamin is a great veteran to have in the ring, and I thought that they did really good work. What we need now, guys, is we need more tag teams. We need to see more teams in this division, because you can't go back to the well with New Day. They're going to have to either bring up some new guys from NXT or something, but they've got to inject some life into this, because this was a hot tag team match for the titles. I think that you need to just simply unify those titles across the brands and let Hurt Business go from brand to brand. I don't think that, I like to see them go up against Montez Ford and be able to fight against them over on the Smackdown side of things with the Street Profits, but you got to have these cross brand matches. I think that that's where the tag titles can do really well. They do it with the women's tag titles. Like, why not do it with the men's? I think now that, because we're in Thunderdome, I don't think that there's a lot of reason why we need to have all of these titles. I think it muddies things up. And frankly, for the tag division, if you're not going to beef up the divisions with more and more tag teams, legitimate tag teams, then I think you just put those titles together. That's my opinion. Now, I did mention the women's tag team titles, and now we do have next up the Women's Tag Team Championship, where you had Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax, the Women's Tag Team Champs, going up against Asuka, the Raw Women's Champ, and the Mystery Partner. And they didn't wait at all, and everybody was correct in their speculation. Charlotte Flair came back as the Mystery Partner to replace Lana. This was interesting because Charlotte was just like over and like not giving anything. Charlotte was taking out Nia Jax, taking out Shayna Baszler. No one got any offense in against Charlotte. She was completely protected in this match. She took out everybody like it was nothing. Charlotte rolls through where her and Baszler are going back and forth for submissions, and then Charlotte actually hits the natural selection over on Baszler, 1-2-3, and we have new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions with Asuka and Charlotte Flair. This is where I wonder what they're going to do with this whole piece, because now you got Charlotte and Asuka. Asuka's the Raw Women's Champion. Now they hold these titles. Flair was just completely like dominating everybody in this match. So I don't know what they're going to do. I always had Charlotte pegged as kind of the bigger return for the Royal Rumble. I don't know if they're going to have some deception between these two, or they're just going to go on a complete, you know, decimation of all of the women's tag, which, are there any women in the tag divisions? I can't even remember right now, because it doesn't seem like there's very many. So this is where I'm wondering, guys, like, what are you going to do with Charlotte and Asuka, that they're the most dominant forces within the women's division? You're going to have to, like, bring up some other women for the tag titles to fight against them if they want to go down that route. But I don't know what they're going to do with them, because they're just so dominant in all of this. Not to mention Asuka is the Raw champ, so how can you have them lose the titles unless everything's going to kind of crumble inward? The only thing I can see is that Charlotte is going to turn on Asuka. Asuka has done amazing work all year round. I think that they're just going to have to get to a point where they either drop the titles entirely, or there's going to just be some infighting where Charlotte's trying to go over and then eventually turn and go after that Raw championship. I don't know. I thought the match was good, though. It was pretty solid. Nia Jax doesn't do anything for me. I do like her and Baszler together. I just find Nia's just she's just too slow when they're trying to go at a much quicker pace. And I wish that they did a little bit more to let Baszler and Nia Jax get more offense in on Charlotte, but they weren't having any of it tonight. Still, good match. Solid overall. Okay, so what I thought was going to be the main event, as I pegged as the main event, was going to be the Universal Championship match, Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens, TLC match. This thing did not disappoint. It did not let up. There was huge spots. Roman spears Kevin Owens through the table in the corner, which was an amazing spot. It looks like Roman hurt his neck or his shoulder coming out of that. We had stunners. We had Usos involved. There was a ton of stuff going on in here. What they are doing with Roman Reigns right now is absolutely fantastic. And I thought that they did a really great job by keeping Kevin Owens strong throughout the entire match, and Roman had some obstacles to overcome. They didn't let Kevin Owens just be a pushover in this whole thing where he just got decimated by Roman. And I didn't think they would do that, but I didn't think they would let Kevin Owens get as much in as they did. So I'm glad to see that they took some stunners. Roman did. I saw that the Usos took some stunners. Like, it was really well paced, really well built. Tons of crashing going on. Roman took a ton. He had some missed spots where he was trying to spear through the barricade. What they're doing with Roman Reigns is really terrific. I hope that it leads to this giant payoff at, say, Mania. Maybe he goes up against Brock and beats Brock as a heel and pushes him even further into next year. But I think Roman needs to just keep doing what he's doing. He's taking everybody out. The problem I have, though, is on the flip side, when you have Roman being so dominant, winning against everybody, who's going to become next? Kevin Owens was great for this role. I don't think that you're going to go back to a Kevin Owens Roman Reigns, even though, like, you could instantly, you could get more matches out of this going forward. But maybe you want to get it into a multi-man title situation where you bring in more guys, run a tournament against Roman, someone to be a #1 contender at the Rumble, for example. But they might go down the path of it leading to a Goldberg match at the Rumble or Mania, because those are the scheduled rumors going on right now. I'm not interested in any of that. If you are going to do Goldberg at all, though, I want to see Goldberg at the Rumble in a quick squash where Roman destroys Bill and let Roman eat 5 spears, but Roman has to go over in that match. I don't know what you're going to do with Kevin Owens right now. He's going to need something leading into the Rumble and Mania. He's done amazing work, but I don't feel like he's going to get past anything with Roman at this point, and he's going to be stuck in kind of this mid-card land unless he wants to just go back to the well and take out Roman some more. I'm kind of waiting, guys, when they're going to unleash Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns. To me, that is kind of this year's Mania match for the Universal title, is you get Goldberg and Roman out of the way at the Rumble, let Daniel Bryan win the men's Rumble, for example. Good positive pop. Let everyone rush to that because he's a fan favorite. It's good for the ratings because people will enjoy to see Daniel Bryan. You go up against a super mega heel of Roman Reigns, and I think that then you would need Roman to actually beat Daniel Bryan at Mania. And you don't let up. You just keep pushing through all of this. We have Bryan on a limited schedule anyways. So I think you want to use Bryan in the most, best capacity possible. So let's do that going into the WrestleMania season. I thought that this TLC match was terrific. Huge spots. These guys really worked really hard. And again, Roman's work keeps going up, from facial expressions to his self-talk that he's doing in the corner, when he knows he's beating the guy down, he keeps coming back because they just keep getting up. And again, kudos to Kevin Owens because he didn't stay down. They let him get up and keep fighting back. Whereas other guys that were going after Roman, they would just be out instantly. Roman Reigns retains the title in the TLC match. We have no real setup or clue where we're going to go, but it's going to make it very interesting over the coming weeks leading into Royal Rumble. Okay, and your main event, what I didn't think was going to be the main event, and we didn't even know what the stipulation was going to be until like a couple of days ago, but we have Randy Orton versus the Fiend Bray Wyatt in a Inferno match. Yeah, so this was our main event, and this thing was graphic. This was a lot. And guys, if you didn't watch it, go watch all the clips. This was interesting because not only for the match itself, but what we were hearing about, you know, the ratings being down and USA Network not being happy with this, and they want something a little bit more edgy and gritty and adult content focused. They got that with this, and especially with just the finish of this match. Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, was doing his thing against Randy Orton. Randy Orton comes out also in like just black, like he comes out in a sweater and pants, which I do appreciate because it's an Inferno match. Why would you come out in like your regular wrestling gear? Because you're gonna get set on fire potentially, and I'm sure that's part of it is that Randy's like, well, I'm not going to go near the flames if I'm going to get put on fire. But I liked how this match did play out. We did ultimately see Randy Orton go over on the Fiend in what was an interesting match. We saw the Fiend get lit on fire, and not only get lit on fire once, we got to see it twice. We saw some spots where it got really, really messy with Fiend trying to push Randy Orton into the fire. They reverse that, and then the Fiend catches fire. His whole coat is on fire. He rushes into the ring, engulfed in flames, and then Randy hits an RKO, which surprisingly keeps him down, but the fire does not keep the Fiend down. The Fiend gets up after an RKO later. So the RKO did a little bit more damage, so they still protect the RKO to no end. But once that was done, the finish of this match was Randy Orton getting presumably, you know, a gas can and dousing the Fiend in gasoline and then lighting the match, which was really well done because you're trying to light a match presumably live. Now they pre-filmed all of this because obviously they didn't want to actually light a man on fire. So they pre-filmed a lot of this stuff where they were going to have it all set up, which was good. They made it tight, like a full match. They didn't go for that cinematic look, which I kind of wish they did. You can get a little bit more miles out of that, especially with the Fiend. But we have towards the end, Randy lights the match, which is going to be, you know, with fans and everything going around, the wind blowing, that you figure that would just take the match out. But did a good job, threw it on the Fiend, which was replaced by obviously a dummy, and they light the Fiend on fire though. So in the context of the storyline, guys, they lit a man on fire and Randy Orton murdered him. They just straight up killed the man. Even though he's a monster, the portrayal is a monster, but they lit him on fire, completely on fire. His face was on fire, everything. And he just laid there engulfed in flames, and Randy does his pose at the end, which I guess, I don't know how you come back from that. Now Randy Orton is the most badass person that's ever walked the face of the earth. He took out the Fiend by lighting the man on fire, and that was it. That's how they went off the air. So is the Fiend dead? They're gonna bring him back. They have to. This is Bray Wyatt's whole thing. So are they now gonna bring him back where he's like got a melted face, or half of it's just oozed off and he's got burned now? He's going to turn into Two-Face in this whole thing because he's been the Joker, but now he's going to turn into Two-Face. I wonder if they're just going to change out the Fiend's mask and give him this, you know, burned look, this melted burned look all over his face. And then would they then make him more psychotic? I don't know what you're going to do, but because they're supposed to be two separate characters, or that it's supposed to be Bray Wyatt under there, how do you have Firefly Funhouse? How do you have like regular Bray Wyatt show up and be totally normal and run his skits? I don't know what you're going to do with the Fiend, but presumably he's going to come back. He might take some time off, give him like up until the Rumble, and then he can come in and destroy somebody. But Randy Orton just put the Fiend on fire and lit him on fire. The match was good. It was fine for what it was. It wasn't anything to scream home about how amazing it was. You're just kind of leading up to the finish, and that's the problem with any type of like overly gimmicky matches. You're just kind of looking for what's the end result going to be. But I don't really know how you're going to get out of this whole thing other than Randy wasn't going to go on fire, and I really just thought that, okay, the Fiend is going to get lit on fire, and that's the end of it. But it's always going to be interesting what they do on Monday, guys. It's going to be interesting to see what they do in the next step. So Randy Orton wins by lighting the Fiend on fire and murdering his face. So ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up WWE TLC 2020. It's in the books. We are now going to head into the Royal Rumble season. Let's see what happens there. Let me know in the comments below, what did you guys think of TLC pay-per-view? Did you enjoy it? What were some of your favorite moments or standout matches throughout this whole thing? it was interesting to see that man get lit on fire, but we'll see what they do with the Fiend. Roman Reigns is hot. It's going well going into the Royal Rumble season. I'm excited though. Let's see what they do on Raw though, because the ratings need to get a little bit spiked up a bit. So let's see if we see anything different coming into Raw. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today on Assemble. I'm Matt, and as always, thank you guys for assembling with us. See ya.